Hello. So today is day 9. I got cut off a little bit from yesterday as well, but what I was just trying to point out was there's going to be ugly people in the world, and just when I meant like the fight for love, what I meant was, to even though someone has done something horrible towards you or whatever, you still send them love in the sense of like they don't need to know about it. They don't need to know crap. Or you could say, peace, see you later, glad. I hope I send you love and healing for one day for you to get better in the head. However, that's what I mean. I don't mean it in the sense of like, oh, they did something god awful to me. Let me go ahead and, dismiss it as nothing and then send them love, Like, no, that's not what I meant. And what I mean on the fight of love is what I mean on that is for you to not give up on love, always, forever, and love yourself. Don't let anyone take that from you in any kind of way. And understand that that's love is what we're here for, is why lack of love creates issues. When you don't have the love, you yearn for it. Love is everything. It revolves around it. And so that's all. I just want to touch on that. Today, I'm going to talk about another situation that happened to me. I was living in that house where I was in that same house. I was living in that same house. This time my parents were divorced, so who lived in my house was just my mom, me, and my brother at the time. So there was only 3 of us living in the house. And at this point, we had already lived in the house for some years, 6 years. So our neighbors knew us, and they knew who was living there and so forth. And the only reason I'm telling you this is just because, we talked to our neighbors and we were aware. Not we were aware, but they knew. We just knew. We knew, like, where I live currently, I know my neighbors, okay? So when my parents divorced, of course, is a big life change for me. But I was okay. My brain feels fried. So I don't know. I'll just go into the story. All of a sudden, me and my mom, or at my house, we started to get phone calls. And back then, there was no cell phones or the convenience of being able to reach oneself. You had to actually call a house and leave a voicemail. Or if you had an answering machine or whatnot. We had a fancy thing called caller ID. It was a little box, and you can see the number. I'm not sure if we had that at that point, but either way, we were receiving phone calls, and the phone calls were pretty bad. They were leaving us, whether one, we answered, and if we answered, we heard some pretty bad things, sexual things they wanted to do to me and my mom. If we didn't answer, it was the same man, it was a guy. He left a voicemail saying what he wanted to do to us or do to my mother. So every day, every other day or something, or at least a couple times a week, we would get phone calls. One day I came home and there was a sliding door. We had actually 2 sliding doors. My mom had one in her room, and then there was one in the living room. We actually had 3, maybe 4. Anyways, and so when I came home, I noticed that I was home alone, and I noticed that the sliding door to my mom's bedroom was open. The door was open in there, and one of her dresser drawers was opened as well, which happened to be of her undergarments, okay? Later on that night, I got a phone call. I answered it, and it was him. And he said that he was in our house and that he was in my mom's room and got a pair of her underpants. I was livid, and I was sick and tired of these threats. I was sick and tired of him calling, and I talked crap to him, and I was like, I'm gonna figure out who the F you are. And I'm like, you better believe I'm gonna figure out who the fuck you are, is what I said. Excuse me, I didn't mean to let the F-bomb slide, but whatever, that's what I said. And but anyways, I had a lot of words to say to him, and eventually we ended up hanging up, or I hung up on him. I don't remember. He hung up on me. I don't know. I don't have any clue. But another time, my mom would get the messages and she wouldn't delete them. And of course, I don't believe the police were called. Anyways, so I'm thinking hard. I'm really trying to figure out who the hell this is. Because in part of the conversation that I have with that guy, and what he would indicate as well, is that he knew it was just my mom and me. He knew that. And my brother. So it had to be somebody I knew. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out who this effer was, and trying to threaten us and say the things he said to us and everything, Yeah, I was afraid. I was very afraid. But more so, I think I let my anger go over that. And I wanted to know who that was. And one time I was home. He called another time, and I had talked to him. And I don't know how, but I figured it out. I figured out who it was. One time I had came home, and we had our washing machine, right? My mom and dad, before they got divorced, anyways, they chose not to ever buy a dryer because of electricity and so forth, whatever. So I had to hang my clothes all the time. So we would wash clothes, and then I had to hang them outside. So I was hanging up a load, and I'm a teenager, I have, shorts on. Daisy Dukes were in back then, and I had a tank top. And it was, full length tank top. But nonetheless, I was outside hanging clothes, and as soon as I walked out in my backyard, I just had this feeling somebody's staring at me. And I keep looking around everywhere, and I don't see nothing. And I'm like, someone's staring at me, and I know it. I know someone's staring at me, and I kept looking and looking. And we had this gate, and I kept hearing water falling, like water, just being kind of pouring. I kept hearing this water, and I was like, what in the heck? Where's this water coming from? And we had a pool, but the pool was not running like that. It doesn't make that noise. So I was just trying to figure it out. So I finished hanging up the load of clothes. I grabbed the basket. I turned around and deadlocked this guy at my neighbor's house. We had a chain link fence, and they used to have these aluminum metal slats that went in between each chain link to kind of give it a block, but you can still see like a thin silhouette. So it would do this number through the chains of the fence. I don't know, but anyways, I don't know what it's called, but it kind of gave like, you couldn't see straight through the fence, but you could see through the little tiny cracks, okay? So I could see a silhouette of a man who was holding a water hose. So from the minute I walked out, he was watching me. And all the time I heard the water, he was watering plants, I guess, outside, or I don't know what he was doing, but I heard that was the water I kept hearing. So when he called me that one night, we had talked to his mom. We had found out that her son had just gotten out of jail. We didn't know why or anything. So when he called me that day, I figured out who he was. So when he called me, I told him, I know who you are. I know who you are, you son of a you-know-what. And I said, and if you ever effing call here again, I'm going to call your parole officer. I'll call the police. I'll put you in jail so fucking fast again. And then he never did. That was the end of the story. So the moral of the story is, don't let fear hold you back. If someone's pressing on you, find out what the F is going on. Be smart. Outsmart them. Look at everything. Pick up clues. Everything. That's what I learned.